everyone and welcome to HR Insights today. We have Emily Warman, a solicitor at Endeavour Partnership. Endeavour Partnership specialises in 4 areas of law: corporate and commercial property, disputes and employment. Emily has been at Endeavour since 2018. She qualified as a solicitor in 2020 in the employment team, which deals with the full spectrum of employment issues and immigration law, alongside her colleague Laura. As many businesses will be aware, Brexit has caused some uncertainty regarding the right to work in the UK, with the EU settlement schemes and the new sponsorship licence scheme. But Emily is here today to discuss this in greater detail and provide some much needed reassurance to businesses about the process. So hi Emily and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I think the best starting point is to ask, what are those common misconceptions about employing people outside of the UK?
Yeah, so I think a really common misconception is that skilled worker definition. A lot of people think that if you bring over a worker and you've got a sponsorship licence, they can do any job, whereas actually the skilled worker job codes are quite specific. And then they think, again, if they have that job code and the pay that matches it, then they can bring them over and do whatever job they need over here. And that's, again, not okay. The Home Office do regularly do audits and check that the work they're doing is within the skilled job occupation code, and they will interview staff members, look at contracts. So you need to be prepared that the work you need is a skilled worker job. Another misconception is the other side of the spectrum. A lot of people don't realise the jobs that they are recruiting actually are skilled worker jobs and could be eligible for that visa, which would then increase that recruitment pool massively.
So if businesses are considering being a sponsored company, what is the first thing they need to consider?
That first step is that skilled worker job. So do you actually have a job that falls within the skilled worker occupation code, and are you going to meet that salary requirement? And then I think it's whether or not actually the job you're looking for is even needed for skilled worker visa or sponsorship licence, because some people, they're only coming over for a few months. The activity might fall within a visitor's permitted activity, and you might not even need that licence or visa. The second thing to consider, which is really important, is that you've got all the documentation together. We do carry out a pre-application audit, and we make sure that all the documents that they need to support their visa application and skilled sponsorship application is in place.
Okay, brilliant. So what is the application process like, and how long will it take a company then to receive that certification?
So the application is online. The business will be asked a series of questions. We do have a pre-mock application that they can do, and we'll run through the answers with them to make sure the questions and the answers are all correct. Then they go on to submitting the application, and they have to submit supporting documents with that within 5 days. So it's really important to get those documents together first. Like I say, we can do a pre-application audit to make sure they have all the documentation. Once they've got the submission in, it can take 8 weeks for the Home Office to make a decision. And there might be a possibility that they get priority service, but the Home Office will let them know once the application is submitted. So that 8 weeks is the negative, really, because it's all the preparation and time that goes into it, just waiting for a decision. But sometimes that wait can be benefited by having the right people within your company.
So once you have been granted that sponsorship licence, what is that ongoing work, and what are the repercussions of getting it wrong?
Yeah, so you have ongoing record-keeping duties as a sponsorship licence, and that is to do with your own business as well as the workers that you sponsor. So, for example, if a worker is absent, you have to report that by the 10th day of absence.
Right, okay.
And the Home Office can do audits anytime during the sponsorship lifetime and check you have all those records up to date, and they will check it alongside your online system. We can carry out audits. We can do them before the sponsorship licence in place. We can do it anytime during. We can also be there if the audit is announced in advance.
Okay, brilliant. So in regards then to, we've got somebody on board, we've gone through the sponsorship licence, and they leave after a couple of weeks being in the business. Can a company, like a training agreement, put in place that they can recoup the cost for that money that they've spent on that sponsorship licence?
Unfortunately not. The sponsorship licence is specific to the company. They can't pass that on to the worker, and that's because when you pay for a sponsorship licence, you get it for 4 years and you can sponsor as many skilled workers as you can, basically. Whereas the skilled worker visa, the company can offer to pay for that specific worker, and they can recoup that cost. But they can't recover the full licence cost. And if they are going to do that, I'd recommend having a clause in the contract to allow them to recoup that if they leave employment early.
We've got the sponsorship licence, we've continued to do that work. What happens then if the Home Office do an audit and they do spot a breach?
So the Home Office may just suspend the licence whilst you fix that breach,
Okay.
or if it's quite serious, they could revoke it completely. And if your licence is revoked, you then have other employment law implications. Along with that, obviously, you're employing somebody who you can no longer sponsor, and then their skilled worker visa would be jeopardised. You've also got to think about all of your immigration responsibilities and employment law obligations as well. It's not just specific to that skilled worker and that sponsor. They can spot anything as a breach. So keeping up with those right to work checks are really important.
So once we've got the sponsorship licence in place, how do you know what certificate we are awarding to that candidate?
Yeah, so the certificates, there's two types. You've got undefined and defined.
Okay.
When you apply for a certificate, the one that you'd automatically be granted would be undefined, and that's because it's for a visa applied for within the UK. However, you have to apply specifically for a defined certificate if the worker is coming from abroad and they'll be applying for their visa abroad.
Okay, brilliant. Oh no, thank you very much. So thanks, Emily, for joining us today. It's been absolutely amazing to get an insight on what is the immigration status at the moment and how we do the sponsorship licence. I think what we can take away from this is the HR side can do the right to work checks, can make sure the businesses are keeping up to date with that. That's something Jackson Hogg can help with. But if there are more questions or going actually through that sponsorship licence, we can give our clients to you.
Yeah, definitely. We'd be more than happy to help with that process.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.